Hey, what's up, everybody? It's BDL44 coming at you with another video. So, I'm thinking about a concept right now. A concept in my head that I'm starting to see maybe forming on the basketball floor with the Los Angeles Lakers. Um, because we have such a strange style that we'll have to figure out um, in terms of making these players fit with one another and finding a cohesive system that works for our team. I think what the Lakers are capable of putting together because we have such um, great Hall of Fame players and cerebral Hall of Fame players, coupled with players who can shoot the ball like Malik Monk and so on and so forth. You know who's on the roster. What I'm starting to realize is that in certain situations, like for example with the Houston Rockets when Russell Westbrook and James Harden were there, it was like my turn, your turn type of thing amongst their superstars. If you look at some of these other situations as well, where superstars have had to team up, it's kind of with the exception of maybe Golden State and some of these other situations where they really, really fit, it becomes a my turn, your turn type of thing. With the Lakers, it's not necessarily that um, that'll make this thing work, in my opinion. It's understanding that you don't need one style of play, you need several. That's what the Lakers are going to have, in my opinion, kind of like that's going to be the identity of the team in terms of your offense. Some days you're going to have an entire system. Everybody's going to do what they need to do for it to be a Russell Westbrook game. And he's going to have the bulk of the usage and the entire structure of the game, all of the minutes, everything that the Lakers do is going to be catered around making sure that Russell Westbrook is the centerpiece of the offense. And that style of play will be the Russell style of play. There will be other matchups where you'll have the LeBron James is the point guard type of play style, as to where everybody will have different roles within that particular play style, and the Lakers will go forward pulling in that direction with the game plan. And then you'll have the AD style of play, as to where everybody on the floor does what they need to do to complement him, and those roles are kind of molded to put AD in a position to be the centerpiece. Rather than having my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, it's the changing of the game plans from game to game that ultimately cater to the star that it's going to be that particular day. That's the way the Lakers are going to have to try to formulate this thing. And the best way to be able to do that is to just figure out multiple styles of play, getting plays within each of those columns, and then from there, molding your entire system around being interchangeable between those styles, and being able to flip those styles after you master them from it being a game to game thing to a quarter to quarter thing to a timeout. Now we switch to the Russell way. Timeout. Okay, now we're switching to the, you see what I'm saying? To the AD game plan. And in the playoffs, what ends up happening is you have so many different options that you can go to and so many different styles of play, not just one style of play that ultimately makes everybody uncomfortable, but more so an interchangeable type of thing. Picture like a clock, a spinning clock with different points, and you just twist it. Like, okay, now it's on this point. All right, now we're focusing on this. Okay, now we gotta adjust. Let's make it an AD situation. Now that everything's pointed in that direction. You see what I'm saying? That's what I have it envisioned that could work, because what you end up having right now is them trying to figure out a style that is consistent to where Russell is always going to have the ball in his hands, and LeBron James does what he needs to do every night within that, and it leaves guys never actually being able to ever be comfortable within the system, because the system itself makes so that they have to all sacrifice, rather than making it so that you have interchangeable systems that make it so that players are featured each and every night. Now the sacrifice is immense, but what you end up happening is on a LeBron James night, he's the centerpiece, but because he's a passing player, other players are going to eat. So even though the game plan may necessarily be pointed in his direction, that may get AD 40 points. That may get Russell Westbrook a triple-double with a bunch of boards, because the system is catered so that all of them shine within whatever situation. It just simply will focus on that particular star in terms of its centerpiece and how the game is being run through them. So there are ways for the shooters to eat in each and every facet of those systems. There are ways for defense to also be run obviously in a consistent way, because this is just focusing on the offense. And I think when you find yourself in situations where you get in foul trouble and you can't run your normal stuff, then you have stuff that you have implemented for that too. So that's kind of how I see the Lakers making this thing work. And they have so many Hall of Fame players to where you're not teaching fundamentals. So you can kind of develop these concepts and then implement them. And these guys should be able to pick it up within like a couple weeks flat. You see what I'm saying? And it's throughout the course of the year, you just have to do experiments and things of that nature to try to figure out how best to make this ultimately come all together. It's tricky, but because most of who we have on our team is here for multiple years on contract, you can see this being something that you're building this year that will ultimately make it so that it's second nature next year. And if everybody's back for a third year, we're such a well-oiled machine with all these different options that we can jump in and out of, to where you'll never know how to defend the Lakers because you never know who they're featuring and what system they're running from night to night. I think that's the way to approach it. Because right now, trying to work Russell into just being, like, for example, yesterday he was the guy who was holding the ball and LeBron James was playing off of him the entire time. Now, maybe because they're work, they'll try to go to that again, maybe. But I'm thinking the next game should possibly be a AD-focused game, and everything should be running around him. And you know, just cater it to whatever the matchup is or the feel of the night, the particular game that you're in. As things go about that, you adjust as you should. So a good coaching staff will figure all of that out and make all of that make sense. But, you know, at the end of the day, I just think that's the way the Lakers should approach this thing. That's what I want to just present to you guys, is the concept. You know, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that people are going to say the Lakers should do in trying to make this thing work. But I think if the Lakers try just, you know, making it so that Russell Westbrook is ultimately sacrificing a lot, because I think that's what it'll ultimately come to. If we try to develop a system that actually, you know, makes it so that everybody eats, and so that we give ourselves the best chance of winning. If we build a system like that, in my mind, that system is probably going to have it so that Russell Westbrook doesn't be himself very often. Like, he'll have moments where he's himself, but he'll never get the consistency of actually having comfortable Russell Westbrook games. And that's what we want to avoid, because we have him on contract for many years. You know, I think he has, 3 years left on his deal. We want him to get off to a good start with his Laker career, and we don't want him to feel like being in a Laker uniform means he can never be Russell Westbrook. I think that's the wrong approach. And being that we have such unselfish superstars, I don't think that's a sacrifice that necessarily has to be as uncomfortable as I see it being. And as the media's been painting it out to in the way they think it's going to be. I just, you know, if you have different systems that you continue to run in different ways, everybody sacrifices and everybody shines. There's a balance. Defense can't never keep up. That's the way to go. You know, Budenholzer taught me something last year in the way that he approached his different way of, you know, bringing different play styles and stuff like that. That's kind of where I got this idea from, because he really did make different adjustments in such a way that made it so that you don't really know who they're going to run their offense through. One day they'll run it through Giannis, the next day they ran it through Middleton. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to guess what he's going to do, and you never know what game plan you want to bring into the situation. So in watching that and studying that, you know, yeah, that kind of gave me the concept of what the Lakers should probably do here. So that's what I wanted to offer you guys. Once again, my name is BDF44th. Hope everybody's having a great day, night, whenever you're watching this. And that's what I got, man. Peace.